The security camera footage from Joey's diner showed Rose Wheeler checking her watch for the third time. Her hands trembled as she pushed a plate of untouched pancakes across the worn Formica table. Across from her, her 12-year-old daughter Amy sat in her wheelchair, unaware that these would be the last moments with her mother. "I'll be right back, sweetheart. Just need to get something from the car," Rose said, her voice cracking. She pulled out an envelope, placing it under Amy's plate. The timestamp on the footage showed 8:47 a.m., September 15, 2003. Rose walked out of the diner, got into her blue sedan, and drove away. She never returned. The waitress found Amy still waiting 3 hours later, her pancakes cold and untouched. When the police arrived, they discovered the envelope containing just 5 words, "I'm doing this to protect her." 20 years passed. Search parties found nothing. Missing person posters faded on telephone poles. The local news eventually stopped running the story. Everyone had a theory: Rose Wheeler had started a new life somewhere, suffered a mental breakdown, or met with foul play. But no one knew the truth. The case went cold until last week when a shocking discovery at the abandoned Wheeler house changed everything. Construction workers demolishing the property found a hidden room in the basement. Inside was a laboratory filled with equipment decades ahead of its time. On a dusty computer screen, a message blinked: "If you're reading this, Amy, it's time. They're coming." The truth about Rose Wheeler's disappearance was far stranger than anyone could have imagined. And it was about to change the course of human history forever. This was how the mystery began. But to understand why a mother would abandon her disabled daughter that morning at Joey's diner, we need to go back to where it all started. Back to the night Rose Wheeler saw something in the sky that would alter both their lives forever. The day after Rose Wheeler vanished, social services placed Amy in the care of the Hendersons, a quiet couple who lived on the outskirts of town. Betty Henderson, a retired nurse, took special care to help Amy adjust to her new life, but the young girl barely spoke for the first 6 months. She would sit by the window of her new bedroom for hours, watching the driveway, waiting for a blue sedan that never came. Despite her physical challenges that limited the use of her legs, Amy showed remarkable intelligence. Her foster father Tom noticed how quickly she could solve complex puzzles, and how she seemed to understand things before they were fully explained. "There's something special about that girl," he would tell Betty at night. "It's like she sees the world differently than we do." Strange things began happening around Amy's 13th birthday. One morning, the Hendersons woke to find their old computer completely rebuilt and running faster than ever. Amy claimed she hadn't touched it, but Tom found engineering sketches hidden under her bed, filled with designs he couldn't understand. At school, Amy excelled in science and mathematics, solving equations that stumped even her teachers. But she struggled to connect with other students, who found her too serious, too focused on things they couldn't comprehend. Only Charlie Wilson, a boy from her physics class who had a knack for building robots, seemed to understand her. The truly unexplainable events started during Amy's junior year of high school. Every month, an envelope would appear on the Hendersons' doorstep containing exactly what Amy needed: specialized medical equipment, new wheelchair parts, or books about advanced physics. The packages never had a return address, but Amy recognized the handwriting on the notes that came with them. On her 18th birthday, Betty and Tom sat Amy down with a letter from Riverside National Bank. An anonymous donor had set up a college fund in her name years ago. The account contained enough money for Amy to attend any university she chose. The bank manager said the account had been opened the day after Rose Wheeler disappeared. "Someone's watching over you," Betty said, squeezing Amy's hand. But Amy was staring at the bank documents, particularly at a string of numbers in the account details. To anyone else, they looked random. But she recognized them as coordinates, pointing to a location hundreds of miles away in the desert. That night, Amy wheeled herself to her desk and pulled out a box she'd kept hidden for years. Inside were all the notes that had come with the mysterious packages. When arranged in a certain way, they formed a pattern. Amy had spent years trying to decode it, knowing somehow that understanding this message would explain why her mother left her that day at Joey's diner. As she added the bank account numbers to her collection of clues, a new pattern emerged. Her hands shook as she realized what it meant. All these years, she thought her mother had abandoned her. But now she understood, her mother had been preparing her for something. Something big. From her window, Amy noticed a black car parked across the street. It had been there every night this week. The man inside was trying to look inconspicuous, but Amy knew better. They were watching. Just like they'd been watching her mother all those years ago. She glanced at her computer screen, where an email had just arrived from an anonymous sender. The subject line read, "Happy birthday, Amy. It's time you learned the truth about your condition." Amy's heart raced as her cursor hovered over the email. Opening it would change everything. But she had waited 20 years for answers. With a deep breath, she clicked. Amy's hands trembled as she opened the mysterious email. Inside was a video file and a set of coordinates matching the ones she decoded from the bank account. The video showed a sterile laboratory where a younger version of her mother stood beside a strange metallic device. "My dearest Amy," Rose's recorded voice was exactly as Amy remembered it. "If you're watching this, you've turned 30 today. I know you have questions, about your condition, about why I left. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible." Before she could click play again, Amy's computer screen flickered. A loud thud from downstairs made her wheelchair shake. Betty's scream pierced the night air. Amy quickly transferred the video file to her phone and wheeled herself to the hallway. Through the gap in the stair railing, she saw men in dark suits questioning Tom and Betty. A familiar face turned toward the stairs, Dr. Phillips, her childhood physician who had treated her disability for years. "She needs to come with us," Dr. Phillips said firmly to the Hendersons. "It's a matter of national security." Tom stood his ground. "She's not going anywhere without an explanation." Amy quietly wheeled herself back to her room, her heart pounding. She grabbed the emergency bag she'd kept packed for years, somehow knowing this day would come. Inside was everything her mother's notes had instructed her to save, the mysterious packages, her medical records, and a strange metallic disc she'd found hidden in her old teddy bear. Her phone buzzed with a text from Charlie Wilson, "Back door clear. Gray van waiting. Hurry." Charlie, who'd stayed in touch since high school and now worked at a tech startup, had always believed her theories about her mother's disappearance weren't just grief-driven fantasies. Using the foldable ramp she'd installed years ago, Amy quietly lowered herself from her bedroom window to the backyard. Charlie helped her into his van just as flashlights swept the side of the house. "Your mom contacted me last week," Charlie whispered as they drove away. "Said you'd need help today. There's a package waiting at my lab." The package turned out to be a sleek, next-generation wheelchair unlike anything Amy had ever seen. It moved with just a thought, responding to neural impulses. The note attached read, "The chair isn't the miracle, Amy. You are." As Charlie helped her transfer into the new wheelchair, Amy's phone lit up with the rest of her mother's video message, "Your condition isn't a disability, sweetheart. It's an advancement. Those legs that never worked properly? They're not meant for this world. They're designed for somewhere else. Somewhere humanity isn't ready to know about yet." A loud bang echoed through Charlie's lab. The metal security door began to glow red-hot around the edges. "They're here," Charlie said, grabbing their research tablets. "Your mom said if this happened, we need to get you to those coordinates. She said you'd understand what to do when we got there." Amy looked down at her new wheelchair, noticing for the first time that its metallic surface matched the strange disc from her teddy bear perfectly. Both hummed with an energy she could feel in her bones. As the security door began to melt, Amy made her decision. "Charlie, I hope you're ready for a road trip. We're heading to the desert." The door burst open. But Charlie and Amy were already gone, leaving only a strange, shimmering light in their wake. The men in dark suits rushed in, led by Dr. Phillips, who picked up a small note left behind. His face paled as he read it. "You were right to watch me all these years. But you were watching the wrong Wheeler." The chase that would change everything had begun. The desert highway stretched endlessly before them as Charlie's van sped through the night. Amy studied her mother's video messages on her tablet, each revelation more staggering than the last. The strange wheelchair hummed softly beside her, its metallic surface catching moonlight through the windows. "Your father didn't die in a lab accident like I told you," Rose's recorded image explained. "He was part of a classified government project called Starbridge. They discovered something in 1990, a signal from deep space. Not random noise, but a message. Your father decoded it." Charlie glanced at the rearview mirror. 2 black SUVs, about a mile back. Amy continued watching. The message contained blueprints. Rose's voice trembled. Plans for medical procedures that could change human DNA. The government thought it was about creating super soldiers. But it wasn't. It was about preparing us. Preparing our children. The tablet showed grainy footage of a younger Rose in a hidden lab. She was pregnant with Amy, allowing doctors to perform procedures she now described. "I volunteered. Your father believed it was humanity's next step. But when they saw how the changes manifested in you, your legs, your incredible mind, they wanted to take you. Study you. I couldn't let that happen." Charlie swerved suddenly. A helicopter's spotlight swept across the road ahead. "They're trying to box us in." Amy's new wheelchair sparked to life, responding to her surge of adrenaline. The metallic disc from her teddy bear began pulsing with the same blue light. She understood now, they were meant to work together. The signal wasn't just blueprints, Rose continued in the final video. It was an invitation. "Your real father isn't dead, Amy. He made contact. He's been waiting for you, preparing a place for us. Your legs don't work on Earth because they're designed for his world." The helicopter was closing in. Charlie's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Whatever you're going to do, Amy, do it fast." Amy connected the disc to her wheelchair. The entire vehicle filled with soft blue light. She could feel something awakening inside her, a strength she'd never known she had. "The coordinates I sent you," Rose's final message played. "There's a receiver there. It's been gathering energy for 20 years, waiting for you. When you're ready, it will take you home. But you have to choose, Amy. Earth or the stars." The helicopter was right above them now. The black SUVs had nearly caught up. Dr. Phillips' voice boomed through a megaphone, "Stop the vehicle. We're trying to protect you." But Amy remembered her mother's note from 20 years ago, "I'm doing this to protect her." Now she understood from what. She placed her hand on Charlie's shoulder. "Pull over." "What?" "They'll take you." "Trust me," Amy smiled, feeling truly powerful for the first time in her life. "I know what my mother built me for." The van stopped. The helicopter's spotlight fixed on them. Armed men approached from all sides. Dr. Phillips stepped forward. "Amy, your condition is unique. We need to study it, understand it. Think of what we could learn." "My condition?" Amy's wheelchair began to transform, pieces shifting and expanding. "It's not a condition, Doctor. It's an evolution. And it's time for humanity to take the next step." The disc pulsed one final time. A blinding light engulfed the desert road. When it faded, Amy's wheelchair had become something else entirely, something that looked more like a pilot's seat than medical equipment. Charlie stared in awe. Is that a key? Amy finished. To my father's world. She held out her hand to her oldest friend. Want to see what's out there? Behind them, Dr. Phillips was shouting orders. The armed men were raising their weapons. But Amy and Charlie were already surrounded by the same shimmering light that had saved them at the lab. The next chapter of the story would take place among the stars. The desert air crackled with energy as Amy's transformed wheelchair, now a sleek vessel humming with otherworldly power, lifted them gently off the ground. Charlie gripped her hand tightly as the earth fell away beneath them. Dr. Phillips and his team grew smaller, their shouts fading into the night wind. Stop. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Dr. Phillips' voice crackled through a radio frequency that somehow reached them. There are others looking for you, people who won't be as gentle as we've been. As if on cue, 3 military jets screamed past them, cutting through the night sky with precision. Amy felt a surge of energy course through her body, connecting her mind directly to the vessel's controls. Knowledge flooded her consciousness: how to fly, how to navigate, how to escape. Charlie, hold on tight, she warned, her eyes glowing with the same blue light as the ship. Her supposedly useless legs tingled with newfound strength as they moved through space in ways that defied Earth's physics. The vessel responded to her thoughts, weaving between the jets with impossible grace. But these pilots were good, too good. They stayed on their tail, matching every move. Amy. Charlie pointed to a red dot blinking on the ship's translucent display. Something's coming. Something big. A massive black aircraft emerged from the clouds above them, unlike anything ever built on Earth. Its surface seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The symbol on its side wasn't military, it was corporate. Quantum Dynamics International, the same company that had funded her father's original research. Your mother warned me about them, Charlie said, pulling out a tablet. They've been searching for the signal source for decades. They know what you are, Amy. What you can do. The corporate aircraft opened like a blooming flower, revealing an array of technology that made the military jets look like toys. A pulse of energy shot out, surrounding their vessel in a web of crackling electricity. But instead of stopping them, the energy web seemed to feed into Amy's ship, making it stronger. She felt her entire body resonating with power, remembering something that had been encoded in her DNA since before birth. The signal, she gasped, understanding flooding her mind. It's not just coming from out there. It's coming from me. I'm the beacon they've been looking for. The military jets peeled away as the corporate ship launched another attack. But this time, Amy was ready. She closed her eyes, connecting deeply with the vessel's core. The blue light spread, forming a protective bubble around them. Your mom left a message about this too, Charlie said, reading from his tablet. The ship isn't just a ship, it's a key to a door. But the door needs 2 keys to open. Amy's hand found the metallic disc, still pulsing in sync with her heartbeat. 1 key in the ship, she realized, and 1 in me. But where's the door? The answer came as a sudden pull in her chest, pointing them toward a specific spot in the desert, the coordinates her mother had left. But the corporate ship was between them and their destination. They're powering up something big, Charlie warned, watching energy readings spike on their displays. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now. Amy took a deep breath, feeling the full weight of her mother's 20-year plan resting on her shoulders. The next few moments would determine not just their fate, but potentially humanity's next step into the cosmos. Charlie, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them, remember when we used to dream about making history in high school? He nodded, managing a nervous smile. Well, she gripped the controls tighter as energy surged through the vessel. Hold that thought. The corporate ship fired its weapon just as Amy activated both keys. The desert night exploded with light, and the chase entered its final phase, one that would take them beyond the boundaries of everything they knew. As Amy's vessel streaked across the desert sky, a massive energy surge erupted from the coordinates ahead. What appeared to be an abandoned radio observatory began transforming, its old satellite dishes rising from the sand like ancient sentinels awakening. "Your mother built this place," Charlie said, reading through more decoded files on his tablet. "She spent 20 years hiding it in plain sight, disguised as a defunct research station." The corporate ship launched another attack, but this time something different happened. The energy beam passed straight through them, like they were made of light. Amy felt her body changing, becoming less solid. The vessel's walls turned transparent, revealing the star-filled sky around them. "It's time you saw the whole truth," a familiar voice echoed through the ship's systems. A hologram flickered to life. Rose Wheeler, but not as Amy remembered her. This was Rose now, 20 years older, her hair streaked with silver, her eyes filled with both wisdom and worry. "Mom?" Amy whispered. "I'm broadcasting this from where I've been all these years, from your father's world. What I'm about to show you will explain everything." The hologram expanded, filling their vision with impossible images. They saw a civilization among the stars, built by beings who had evolved beyond physical form. They watched as these beings discovered Earth, saw humanity's potential, and chose to help guide their evolution. They witnessed Rose and Amy's father working together in the secret lab, volunteering for the project that would change their daughter's DNA. "Your father wasn't just a scientist," Rose's hologram explained. "He was one of them, sent to study humanity. But he fell in love, with Earth, with me, with the idea of bridging our two worlds. You, Amy, are that bridge." The corporate ship fired again, but now its weapons seemed to pass through reality itself. The observatory ahead had fully transformed, revealing its true nature, a gateway between worlds. "Those who hunt you think they want weapons or power," Rose continued. "But this was never about dominance. It's about evolution. Humanity is ready to take its next step, but it must be a choice freely made." Suddenly, the air around them crystallized. Time seemed to slow. Through the vessel's transparent walls, Amy could see the corporate ship frozen in mid-attack, the desert dust hanging motionless below them. A new figure appeared, tall, composed of light and energy, yet somehow familiar. When it spoke, Amy recognized her father's voice, though she'd never heard it before. "My daughter," the being said, reaching out with hands made of starlight. "You've carried the key in your DNA, in your mind, in your very being. But the choice must be yours. Open the gateway, and humanity will have its first step to the stars. Stay, and remain safe in the world you know." Amy looked at Charlie, who nodded encouragingly. She thought of the Hendersons, who had loved her as their own. She thought of her mother, who had sacrificed everything to protect her. She thought of humanity, poised on the edge of its greatest journey. The metallic disc pulsed one final time, responding to her decision. Amy Wheeler, the girl who could never walk on Earth, stood up in zero gravity. For the first time in her life, her legs worked perfectly. "I choose both worlds," she declared. "Not a bridge that closes, but a door that stays open." Energy surged through her body as both keys activated fully. The gateway ahead began to spin, creating a corridor of light between Earth and the stars. The corporate ship unfroze, its weapons useless against what was now happening. The next step would change everything, not just for Amy, but for all of humanity. The gateway pulsed with swirling energy, creating a bridge between two worlds. Amy's vessel hovered at its threshold, the corporate ship now backing away as if sensing it was witnessing something far beyond its control. Through the shimmering portal, Amy could see another world, a place where the laws of physics seemed more like gentle suggestions. "Welcome home," her father's light form said, extending a hand made of pure energy. But before Amy could respond, another figure emerged from the portal, solid, human, real. Rose Wheeler stepped onto the deck of Amy's vessel, older but unmistakable. For a moment, mother and daughter just stared at each other, 20 years of separation hanging between them like a physical thing. "Amy," Rose whispered, tears streaming down her face. "My brave, brilliant girl." Amy found she could stand in the vessel's zero-gravity field, her legs working perfectly. She took her first steps ever, walking straight into her mother's arms. They held each other as 2 decades of loss and longing poured out. "I'm so sorry," Rose said, her voice breaking. "Leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done." But they were getting too close. "If they'd taken you before you were ready, before you understood what you are." Charlie watched from the pilot's seat, wiping his own eyes. Below them, the corporate ship had landed, and Dr. Phillips was emerging with his team. But they no longer seemed threatening, just small figures watching history unfold. "Your mother has been working on the other side," Amy's father explained, his form shifting between light and something almost human. "Preparing their world for contact with Earth. And I've been watching over you, through the technology we left behind." The packages, Amy realized. The college fund. The wheelchair. "You were helping me all along." Rose nodded. "We had to let you grow up normal, let you choose your own path. But we also had to prepare you for this moment." Through the gateway, Amy could see a city of light and energy, where beings of pure consciousness built wonders that defied explanation. But when she looked back at Earth, she saw its own kind of beauty, the desert stars, the determined faces of humans looking up at her vessel, the planet that had been her home. "The corporate ships," Charlie pointed out. "They're all backing away. Because they finally understand," Amy's father said. "This isn't something that can be owned or controlled. It's an invitation, one that must be accepted freely." Rose took Amy's hand. "Humanity has dreamed of the stars since they first looked up at the sky. Now it's time for those dreams to become reality. But they need guides, people who can walk in both worlds." Amy looked at her legs, now working perfectly in this space between realities. She wasn't disabled, she had simply been built for a different world. Or rather, for both worlds. "What happens now?" Charlie asked, still taking in the incredible scene. Amy smiled, feeling the full weight of her unique position between Earth and the stars. "Now," she said, "we build a bridge. Not just for me, but for everyone." The gateway hummed with possibility as Earth's first true contact with another civilization began, not with war or fear, but with a family reunion 20 years in the making. As dawn broke over the desert, Amy stood in her vessel hovering between 2 worlds. On one side, the shimmering gateway showed the civilization of pure energy and limitless possibility that her father's people had built. On the other, Earth waited with all its flaws and beauty, where Dr. Phillips and his team watched from below. "The gateway can't stay open forever," her father explained, his form shifting like starlight. "The energy required is immense. We have perhaps one Earth day before we must choose, close it permanently, or risk destabilizing both worlds." Rose gripped Amy's hand tighter. "There's more," she said softly. "The corporate ships backing away? They're gathering reinforcements. Quantum dynamics won't give up easily. They'll want to control this, to own it." Charlie worked at the vessel's controls, monitoring Earth's communications. "She's right. Military units are mobilizing worldwide. The news is spreading. Everyone wants a piece of this." Amy watched the sun rise over her home planet, thinking of all the people below. Some would want to exploit this connection, true. But others, dreamers, explorers, the disabled and disadvantaged, they deserved a chance at the stars. "What if we don't have to choose?" she said slowly, an idea forming. "Dad, you said your people evolved beyond physical form. But you can still take solid shape, like you're doing now." Her father nodded, his light form condensing slightly. "We exist in multiple states. It's how we learn to traverse the cosmos. And Mom, Amy turned to Rose, you've been living in their world, but you're still human. You found a way to adapt. The same changes we made to your DNA, Rose replied. They let humans survive there, let them slowly evolve while keeping their physical form. Amy's wheelchair-turned vessel hummed as she connected with its systems. Then maybe that's the answer. Not a permanent gateway that anyone could abuse, but a gradual bridge. A way for humans to earn their place among the stars. She pressed her hand against the vessel's wall, and the metallic disc pulsed in response. Images flowed through her mind, technical schematics, biological processes, the true purpose of her unique genetics. The wheelchair you designed, she said to her parents, it wasn't just for mobility. It was a prototype. A way to help humans adapt gradually, like I did. To let them experience both worlds without losing themselves. Charlie's eyes widened as he understood. A controlled evolution. Not a door that anyone can walk through, but a path that must be earned. Below, more vehicles were arriving at the desert site. News helicopters circled at a safe distance. The world was waking up to its first glimpse of a larger universe. Amy stood straighter, feeling the weight of the moment. I can be the bridge, she said. Not just between worlds, but between stages of human evolution. We can set up research centers, legitimate ones, not corporate-controlled. Help people adapt safely, learn to exist in both forms. It would take years, her father cautioned. Decades even. Good, Amy smiled. Humanity needs time to grow into this. I should know, it took me 30 years just to understand who I really am. Rose hugged her daughter fiercely. Whatever you choose, we'll support you. Amy looked at Charlie, who had stood by her through everything. At her mother, who had sacrificed so much to protect her. At her father, a being of pure energy who had loved humanity enough to help guide its evolution. The choice she was about to make would shape the future of two worlds. 20 years after Amy Wheeler made her historic decision, a small ceremony took place at what was now called the Wheeler Institute for Human Advancement. The old desert observatory, once a hidden gateway, had become humanity's first step to the stars. Inside the main research center, Amy sat beside her mother Rose, both watching as the latest group of candidates demonstrated their ability to shift between physical and energy forms. Charlie, now the Institute's head of technology, monitored their vital signs from a control panel that blended Earth science with otherworldly knowledge. Remember my first transformation? Amy asked her mother, smiling at the memory. I was so afraid I'd lose myself. And now look, Rose gestured to the candidates, each glowing with the same blue light that had once marked Amy as different. You've helped hundreds make the journey. The Institute had become exactly what Amy had envisioned. Not a gateway that could be exploited, but a path that had to be earned. Each candidate spent years preparing, proving they sought advancement not for power, but for the betterment of both worlds. Dr. Phillips, now one of their strongest allies, had helped establish protocols to prevent corporate exploitation. The old fear and secrecy had been replaced by careful optimism and rigorous oversight. Amy's father appeared beside them, his form shifting easily between light and solid matter. The council is pleased, he said. Humanity's evolution is proceeding naturally, without losing what makes them unique. Through the Institute's windows, Amy could see the desert where her journey had begun. The spot where she'd first risen above her supposed limitations. Where she'd learned that what others saw as a disability had actually been a gift. A young girl in a wheelchair approached Amy, her eyes bright with hope. Ms. Wheeler? They say you couldn't walk either, when you were my age. Amy knelt beside her. Walking isn't what makes us special, she said softly. It's learning to fly with whatever gifts we're given. The girl smiled, understanding. Above them, the stars twinkled with possibility, no longer out of reach. Rose squeezed her daughter's hand. You chose both worlds, she said proudly. Not just for yourself, but for everyone who dreams of something more. Amy watched the candidates complete their transformations, each one proving that humanity's next step wouldn't be a leap, but a careful journey. She thought of that morning at Joey's diner, when her mother had left to protect her. The note had been right, she had needed protection, but not from danger. She'd needed protection from those who would have rushed her destiny. The best journeys, Amy told the young girl beside her, are the ones that change us slowly, that let us carry our humanity even as we reach for the stars. Outside, the desert wind carried the sound of hope into the endless sky. The Wheeler Institute stood as a testament not just to human advancement, but to the power of choosing one's own path, of turning difference into destiny, of finding strength in what others saw as weakness. And somewhere between Earth and the stars, a family once torn apart by necessity had found their way home, not to one world or another, but to the beautiful space in between, where dreams take flight and limitations become launching pads to the infinite.